All right, Seton, poll question. The commissioner will join us in about 15 minutes from now. What do we have first hour?
Here's one from Marvin, the front office that has the worst reputation in the NFL.
Whoa.
Browns, Jets, Bengals, Bears, other.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Any thoughts on any of those teams?
Wow.
All right.
Bengals certainly seem to be getting put through the ringer right now with some of their contract negotiations. The Browns have 15 quarterbacks on the roster.
Okay.
The Jets are a disaster. Bears traditionally are terrible. However, there is some optimism there.
Yes.
They're trending forward.
Yes. Got a head coach that is respected, should work in unison with Caleb. They got some toys there for him to play with, and I would say that there is a positive outlook. The Bengals are being the Bengals. They're cheap. Will play some sound from their first-round draft pick, who is not happy with what the Bengals are doing. You can spend all that money on offense, and Joe Burrow wanted his receivers paid. You're not going to the playoffs if you're not playing any defense. You're not. And that's the surprising part of it. Although the expectation level for the Bengals this year is around 10 wins, which is surprising. The Cleveland Browns are a mess. I would say the Jets. I mean, that starts with ownership. That's been a mess. And you can change coaches. You can change players, GMs. You still have the same ownership. And that's where it starts. Because when you say, oh, that team, that's a mess. Okay, bring in another head coach or another starting quarterback or whatever it might be. You still have ownership there. And ownership that stays out of the day-to-day, that's when you can have success. It's when they meddle and they think they're the smartest people. That's where it's really dangerous. Where all of a sudden the owner of the Cleveland Browns, Jimmy Haslam, goes, you know what we're going to do? We're going to do this. And be like, no, we don't want to draft Johnny Manziel. We're drafting him. Okay. You get that impulsive owner who wants to all of a sudden go, yeah, I own the team. Watch this. I'm going to make this move. I'm going to sign this player. The Bengals are cheap. They do have, a great quarterback. They got really good wide receivers. They paid them, but they're on the cheap with Trey Hendrickson, who, by the way, is the sack leader the last 2 years. So I would think that you would want to sign him up. They just don't want him to get that money that Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons, T.J. Watt's going to get. And he shouldn't get that money. But should he be in there with Max Crosby? Well, probably so. Who was the other one? So you got the Jets, you got the Browns. And I'd take the Bears out of it.
Let's not forget the Bears' history. They've had one really good offseason where they spent on Ben Johnson. But historically, they've never done stuff like this. It's almost like a pause, like, hey, good for them.
But that starts with ownership, too.
Yeah.
Just look at ownership. That'll tell you everything about a franchise. How solid is that ownership? Stable. Not involved. Not in front of the camera constantly. Yeah, Paulie.
I hate to do this because I'm anti-Cowboys for clicks. I would absolutely put the Cowboys on this poll question because, as you described, an owner who thinks he knows more about football than football experts is what the Cowboys have been doing for 35 years, and it's not working out.
Jerry Jones knows how to make money.
Sure.
He doesn't necessarily know how to run a football team successfully. And if you don't have a GM and all of a sudden you're the GM and the owner, because the owner would have fired a GM who did the moves that Jerry made. Because if Jerry ever came on the show, I would ask him, would you have fired you as the GM? Because if you look at not making the playoffs, you make the playoffs, or you haven't been to a conference final, the last time you won a Super Bowl, all of those things. So I would say Jerry is great at making money. Yes, Eden.
I do not like the Cowboys. I actively root against them, and I take great pleasure in watching them not win.
There's a but coming up.
But to compare them to the Browns is too far.
Fair.
Too far. That is, I love watching the Cowboys lose almost as much as I like watching the teams I like win. Every Cowboys loss feels like a win to me, but to say that they should belong on this list with the Browns and the Jets And even the Bears, frankly, that's not right.
But who has had more expectations attached to them?
But if you have expectations, that means you're doing something right.
No, that just
And
means,
then you're just being disappointing.
that just means that the networks focus on the Cowboys because of the fan base there. It's not because it's warranted. Nobody's received more attention, probably in the history of the NFL, for the lack of success than the Cowboys have. But they have an incredible fan base, and a fan base that still believes every single year this might be the year. I just think Jerry is great at he's great at branding. He's great at continuing to have them constantly being discussed. He likes the any news is good news. Like he probably subscribes to that. Now, have they had far more success than the Cleveland Browns? Absolutely. But we're looking at dysfunction on different levels there. Like the Jets, I mean, it's gotten to the point where you just go, I feel sorry for them. And the Cleveland Browns with Jimmy Haslam, the Bears, another cheap organization, the Bengals, a cheap organization. These are things that are systemic. And the Bengals shouldn't be thinking about, are we going to get my first-round draft pick here? Are we going to get the guy who's the sack leader? Like, now it should be exciting. Now, this should be the time where you go, we're looking pretty good here. Yeah, Paulie.
I would say, though, that the Browns have made some horrible picks and moves personnel-wise over the past 15 years, and they're way too risky. Manziel, you could see it. It was way too risky. Deshaun Watson had so much baggage off the field.
Yeah.
There was nothing you were bidding against to get him. There was way too much downside with Deshaun. And with a franchise like that has a super loyal fan base, make safe decisions.
But they had to make an unsafe decision because of the organization. They had to give Deshaun Watson a deal he couldn't refuse because he didn't want to go
It's
there.
like you said, they made their own bed.
Yes.
They're a bad franchise, so they had to overpay him.
Yes. That's how they got to the point to make a risky decision, is because they've made other bad decisions. DraftKings has the team that will have the fewest wins. It's the Browns, then it's the Saints, Giants, the Jets, the Titans, Raiders and Panthers are tied after that. But it's the Browns and Saints right now in the clubhouse for the fewest wins. And I do think that will lead to something very – if I'm Saints organization, at what point is there organizational tanking here? Maybe you don't put the best people on the field, because if you happen to end up with the number one pick in the draft, now you make it a little bit tougher for Arch Manning to go, I'll go back to Texas instead of going to my hometown team with the Saints. I can quarterback the team that Archie Manning, who I'm named after, quarterback. But I wonder about that with the Saints. Do you get to the point where you go, and they've got some talent, but they're talking about trading some players, maybe getting to that point where, oh, woe is me. Like, I don't think anybody's going to be sad. They can wear the Aints paper bags if they know they're getting Arch Manning. Like, I'll go through another, bad season where we win 3 games. I think the over-under for the Browns is 4.5. I think the Steelers right now is 8.5.